Welcome back to our channel, dear friends and fellow Port Charles residents. In all my years of watching this remarkable program, I have found that the most compelling narratives are often those that strip our favorite characters of their usual defenses and plunge them into moments of raw, unfiltered vulnerability. The recently leaked promotional footage for the week of July 13th has done exactly that, presenting us with a scenario that is as visually striking as it is emotionally devastating. The footage focuses entirely on Dr. Portia Robinson, a woman we have come to know as a pillar of strength, intellect, and unwavering control within the chaotic halls of the hospital. Yet, in this brief but harrowing glimpse into the future, we see Portia entirely out of her element, clutching her heavily pregnant belly and crying out in agonizing pain. She is completely alone in her home, a stark contrast to the bustling medical environment where she usually commands absolute authority. The sheer terror in her voice as she cries out that the baby is coming sent an immediate shiver down my spine, reminding me of the profound fragility of human life regardless of one's medical expertise or meticulous preparation. As a literary critic who has spent decades analyzing the narrative structures of daytime television, I am deeply fascinated by the poetic irony of this impending storyline. Portia is a brilliant physician, a woman who has spent her entire career managing the medical crises of others with a cool, detached precision. She understands the physiological mechanics of childbirth better than almost anyone in Port Charles. Yet, when the moment arrives for her to bring her own child into the world, she is deprived of the sterile safety of her hospital, the reassuring presence of her colleagues, and the advanced medical technology she relies upon daily. Instead, she is reduced to the most primal, unscripted human experience imaginable, forced to navigate the terrifying throes of labor on her own living room floor. This narrative choice is nothing short of brilliant. It strips away the white coat, the stethoscope, and the professional title, leaving only a terrified mother fighting for the survival of her unborn child. It is a poignant reminder to all of us, especially those of us who have lived long enough to see our own carefully laid plans unravel, that life ultimately bows to no one's schedule. The promotional footage masterfully builds tension through ambiguity, particularly regarding who Portia might be communicating with in her moment of desperate need. We hear her voice, strained and breathless, but it is entirely unclear whether she is simply verbalizing her panic to the empty room, praying to the heavens, or speaking to someone on the other end of a telephone line. This deliberate omission by the writers is a classic technique designed to fuel our speculation and keep us deeply invested. If she is indeed on the phone, the immediate and most heartbreaking assumption is that she is trying to reach Curtis Ashford. The thought of Curtis, the man who has fought so tirelessly to rebuild his family and secure a future with Portia, being absent during the birth of their child, is a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions. We have watched Curtis navigate the agonizing revelations of the past, particularly the long-held secrets regarding Trina's paternity, and we have witnessed the beautiful, hard-won healing between him and Portia. For him to be stranded elsewhere, listening helplessly to the cries of the woman he loves as she faces this monumental ordeal alone, would be an emotional crucible for his character. However, the rumors and leaks suggest other fascinating possibilities regarding the voice on the other end of that potential phone call. There is significant speculation that Portia might have managed to dial Isaiah Gannon from a purely practical standpoint, reaching out to a fellow medical professional in a moment of extreme physical distress makes perfect logical sense. Portia's analytical mind, even clouded by the excruciating pain of contractions, would instinctively seek out someone who understands the clinical realities of an unassisted home birth. If Isaiah is the one trying to guide her through this crisis, it introduces a fascinating dynamic of professional camaraderie, transforming into a desperate, life-saving lifeline. Isaiah would have to project absolute calm, walking a terrified colleague through the very procedures she knows by heart but cannot physically manage in her current state. It would be a testament to the bonds forged in the medical field, where doctors must often become the ultimate protectors of their own. Yet, as a longtime viewer who cherishes the deep, complex histories of these characters, I find myself utterly captivated by the third possibility. The idea that Jordan Ashford might be the one to answer the call, or, even more dramatically, walk through the door of Portia's home just in time to deliver the baby. The narrative symmetry of such an event would be breathtaking. Jordan and Portia share a history fraught with tension, jealousy, and the shared love of the same man. We have watched them circle each other for years, navigating the awkward, often painful realities of being the ex-wife and the current wife. But we have also seen a profound underlying respect develop between these two fierce, protective women. For Jordan to be the one to kneel on that floor, push aside past grievances, and physically guide Portia's child into the world would be an act of supreme grace. It would symbolize a definitive end to their lingering animosities, forging a bond between them that transcends romantic rivalries. It is precisely this kind of rich, layered, emotionally intelligent storytelling that elevates General Hospital above mere melodrama and turns it into a profound exploration of human forgiveness. The visual composition of the promo's final moments is particularly haunting and deserves careful analysis. We see Portia lying on the floor, surrounded by hastily gathered towels, assuming a birthing position. The raw physicality of the actress's performance in this brief clip is commendable. You can feel the exhaustion, the terror, and the instinctual drive to push. There is no glamorous lighting here, no soft focus romance. It is gritty, immediate, and visceral. It brings to mind some of the most iconic high-stakes births in the history of Port Charles, where the joy of new life is inextricably linked with the immediate threat of tragedy. The presence of the towels suggests that Portia has recognized the inevitability of her situation. She knows she cannot wait for an ambulance, and she must take the terrifying step of delivering her own child. It is a moment of profound isolation, yet it connects her to the countless generations of women who have faced the daunting precipice of childbirth with nothing but their own inner fortitude. But the true terror of this storyline lies not just in the isolation of the birth, but in the ominous whispers of what is to follow. The leaked information heavily hints at a devastating new disaster, specifically pointing towards severe postpartum complications. This is where my heart truly aches for Portia and the entire Ashford family. It is one thing to survive a harrowing, unassisted birth. It is an entirely different nightmare to successfully bring a child into the world only to have the mother's life suddenly hang in the balance. The phrase new disaster suggests something catastrophic, perhaps a severe hemorrhage, a sudden and dangerous drop in blood pressure, or a hidden complication that Portia, in her isolated state, cannot possibly treat. I find myself both dreading and anticipating this plot twist. On one hand, I want nothing more than for Portia to hold her healthy baby and experience a moment of unadulterated joy. On the other hand, the literary critic in me recognizes that true dramatic gold is mined from adversity. If Portia faces life-threatening complications right there on her living room floor, the stakes for the entire Port Charles canvas are raised exponentially. It forces us to confront the terrifying reality that modern medicine cannot always save us, especially when time is of the essence. Imagine the frantic, heart-stopping moments when help finally does arrive. Whether it is Jordan, Isaiah, Curtis, or the paramedics, they will be walking into a scene of unimaginable trauma. The frantic rush to transport a critically ill Portia to the very hospital where she usually saves lives would be a masterclass in suspense. The irony would be thick and suffocating. The brilliant doctor, bleeding out, entirely dependent on the desperate efforts of her colleagues. This kind of narrative forces characters to confront their deepest fears and exposes the raw nerve of their love for one another. We must also consider the profound psychological impact this impending tragedy will have on Trina Robinson. Trina has already endured a lifetime's worth of emotional upheaval. She has navigated the agonizing truth about her paternity, the heartbreaking loss of Spencer, and the constant underlying tension of her family's complex dynamics. To suddenly face the prospect of losing her mother, just as she is meant to be welcoming a new sibling, seems almost unbearably cruel. I worry about the toll this will take on her young spirit. Will this trauma break her, or will it forge her into an even stronger, more resilient woman? As viewers who have watched Trina grow from a teenager into a remarkable young adult, our protective instincts are naturally triggered. We want to shield her from this pain, but we also know that watching her navigate this grief will provide some of the most compelling, tear-jerking performances of the year. The dynamic between Trina and the new baby, forever marked by the trauma of its birth, will provide years of rich storytelling material. And then, of course, there is Curtis. My heart breaks simply contemplating the agony he will endure if Portia's life is genuinely threatened. Curtis is a man who defines himself by his ability to protect those he loves. He has faced down mobsters, solved impossible crimes, and fought his way back from a devastating paralysis. But no amount of physical strength or investigative prowess can stop a postpartum hemorrhage. The utter helplessness he will feel standing in a hospital waiting room while his colleagues fight to save his wife will be a defining moment for his character. It brings to mind the classic timeless struggles of the Ashford men, who always seem to find themselves battling impossible odds for the sake of their families. If Portia were to slip into a coma or face a prolonged, grueling recovery, Curtis would be forced to step into the role of a single father to a newborn while simultaneously carrying the crushing weight of his wife's uncertain fate. It is a storyline that demands incredible emotional depth from the actors, and I have no doubt they will deliver performances that will leave us weeping. In offering my own perspective on this narrative direction, I must say that I wholeheartedly agree with the writer's decision to push Portia into this terrifying crucible. Yes, it is difficult to watch characters we love endure such profound suffering. We naturally crave happy endings and peaceful resolutions, but as seasoned viewers, we know that perpetual happiness is the enemy of compelling drama. General Hospital has always been at its best when it explores the fragile, precarious nature of life, reminding us that joy and sorrow are inextricably linked. By stripping Portia of her control, her medical sanctuary, and potentially her health, the writers are giving her the opportunity to demonstrate a kind of primal, transcendent strength that we have never seen from her before. It is a terrifying journey, yes, but it is also an incredibly empowering one. It elevates her from a capable professional to a fiercely heroic mother.